Exactly. So this tegument that they have, this like protective coating, that rough outer skin, they have to avoid being digested by your stomach. And in order to survive the digestive enzymes in the stomachs of animals, okay, that tegument has to be really protective and thick, okay? Then they also have what's called a scolex, which is at the anterior end, and it's what's in this picture here. Now, this hook and suckers actually allows the organism to attach to the host. Okay? So just imagine that that's how that organism is staying attached inside an animal. Okay? Now, behind the scolex is a short neck, and then there are repeating body segments called proglottids. So as the organism grows, it basically adds sections. Okay? And so proglottids push the older ones to the posterior. And if they are allowed to grow for long enough, a tapeworm can develop up to 2,000 proglottids. Now, think back to that video we watched last week. Do you remember when that camera was inside the intestine and it saw those worms? Each of those little segments was a proglottid. Okay? Now, these animals um, have a similar excretory and nervous system to flatworms, but they don't have eye spots. Okay? Okay? There's not much light present in your small intestine. Now, they don't have a mouth, a gastrovascular cavity, or digestive structures. They absorb nutrients directly through their tegument, or that outside layer of epidermal tissue. Okay? Think about where they are. There's food surrounding them, your food. Okay? So they're not eating their host, they're eating the food that the host consumes. Okay? If that makes sense. So uh, they are hermaphrodites. So the proglottids contain both male and female parts. Okay? As they move to the rear, they start to develop eggs, and the oldest could have as many as 100,000 eggs inside of them. Just one. So imagine if you've got a few thousand proglottids times 100,000. These worms are laying a lot of eggs inside of their host. Okay? Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the life cycle in a little bit. Okay? But this is obviously a picture of someone infected by a tapeworm. Okay? Now, tapeworms are still flatworms, keep in mind. Okay? So I just want to clarify that. That's why we watched this clip last week. So we're still talking about a flatworm here. Okay? Now, pause. I just want to make sure I already showed you this. Oh, yep. Okay. Let's just continue. I think we already watched that one anyway. Okay. Okay. So now this gets us to the phylum Nematoda, which are roundworms. Okay. Now, these are the first animals with a digestive tract that contains a mouth and an anus. So it's a one-way digestive tract. Food doesn't go back and forth, it goes one way, one direction. Okay? They have separate sexes in most species. And just like the tapeworm had that um, protective structure on the outside, these animals have a cuticle as well. Okay? Think about it. You're being ingested, you have to get through an organism's stomach in order to be successful. So you have to withstand some pretty intense digestive acids to survive. Okay. Now, this is the worm that we will be looking at tomorrow. These are Ascaris worms. Now, this is from a human bowel. Now, in this case, this person had to have their intestines removed because it was so full of these worms. Okay, they can affect pigs, horses, and humans. And remember, these animals are not eating the host; they're eating the food that passes through the host digestive system. Okay, so if not treated, they can get to the point where they actually block your intestines completely. Okay. Now again, a human would probably, in most cases, would be experiencing symptoms before that happened that they would notice. But if you're talking about, horses, pigs, cows, they can't tell you what's wrong necessarily, right? So that can happen. Now you might want to brace yourself. This next picture is graphic as well. Okay. Another example. So now you will see actual Ascaris worms tomorrow. You will, if you're in class, you will see them in person. If you're remote, I will hold them up for you. We don't cut these again because just on the very minuscule chance that their eggs could still be viable in the females, so we don't dissect them. So this next picture is another type of roundworm called a loa worm. Has anyone ever heard of these before? Do you know what they are most famous for infecting or inhabiting? No? Okay, well, they don't always do this, but an eye. So you can actually see these worms in the eyes of people who, where they've migrated to that region of the body. Uh, they are endemic to Western Africa, and they actually live in your blood, not necessarily your eye. But of course, there is circulation that goes to your eye, and it is possible for them to cross into your eye through that barrier. They have intermediate hosts, so things like mango flies. And in serious cases, they can even get to the point where they're causing swelling on someone's brain, so encephalitis. Okay. Yes, you can, and I will show you a clip of it when actually being removed. It is still alive, obviously, when it's being removed. Yeah. But yes, you can remove these. Okay. Now, one that is of particular interest in the United States is hookworm. So hookworm actually lives in your intestines, and instead of eating food that's passing through the intestines, it actually feeds on the blood of the host. Okay. Um, and then it releases eggs into the feces or of the host. Okay. The larvae develop into the soil, and they actually infect people not through ingestion, but they burrow into a host through their feet. So if you're walking barefoot and you happen to walk through grass that's contaminated with feces, um, then they grow into your feet and then they travel into your lungs and throat. Now, once they're in your lungs, that sounds terrible. But remember, their goal is not your lungs. They don't really care about that. They need to get into your intestines. So when you cough, what happens if you're sick sometimes? Do you ever cough up some phlegm and then swallow it? Well, if you have hookworms, what you are doing is coughing up their larvae out of your lungs, you swallow it, and now they got to your digestive tract. And then the whole process starts again. Now, there is some debate about the importance of hookworms to some pretty negative stereotypes we have about um, Southerners in the United States. And I'll show you that clip. We probably won't get to it today. Um, but it turns out that in the United States, in the rural South, hookworm was rampant. Like, yes, like extremely widespread. And we'll watch this clip tomorrow. But and talk a little bit about like what effect that had on culture and society in the South. Now, this is what an infection might look like for hookworm. Okay, and you can see that that does not look pleasant. Okay, uh, I believe I don't know the exact treatment, and I don't want to misspeak, but I know there was an eradication campaign that was successful. I don't know. It wasn't like antibiotic. I don't know exactly what the drug was, but what you will find out for sure. And then the last type of roundworm I'll point out to you is filarial worms, and they actually live in your lymphatic tissue. So what they would do is basically they'd infect your lymph system, and if you don't know, your lymph system collects fluid around cells and returns it to the bloodstream. So filarial worms block that. Okay, and so that can lead to incredible amounts of swelling. Um, and if you've ever had a dog with heartworm, okay, you know how serious a condition like that can be. Okay, so the heartworm is a filarial worm that infects dogs, but it can lead to conditions like this. Okay, where you've got just massive swelling, and what you're seeing there is the retention of lymphatic fluid. Okay, and that's causing this. Now, this doesn't happen overnight, of course, but it's very painful. Obviously, limits mobility, can't walk if that is happening to you. So definitely a serious, serious condition. Now, I'm going to stop recording now, and I'm going to show you a few of these clips just so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, for the sake of timing,